Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be tier ranking the extra rangers and extra heroes of Super Sentai, and these are definitely the most inconsequential characters, but they've always been cool to me. I won't be including every single extra ranger, extra hero, just ones that are officially considered those, so I won't be considering some one-off characters like Ursula Brown or Deca Bright, and also be including Ryu Commander and Koguma Skyblue from Gekiranger, because they're technically additional rangers, but there just aren't enough to make their own list, so I'll just put them here. At the end, I'll talk about the 3 Gekirangers that don't really fit into the other colors, which is Balance, Nagare, and Stinger, just because there aren't enough orange rangers, and then Balance and Nagare are the only 2 gold and silver that are 6 rangers, so I'll talk about them at the end. So without further ado, this is my tier ranking of the extra rangers and extra heroes of Super Sentai. First is Ninja Man from Gekiranger, and he's pretty forgettable. I always think of him as just the worst Signal Man. They kind of have a similar vibe as leading more into comic relief, but he's introduced pretty late into the season and doesn't really do anything memorable. He still has a couple funny episodes, but he's nothing that special, so he's going in C tier. Next is Gunmajin from Abaranger, and he's pretty bad. Apparently he appears in 6 episodes, but I don't really remember him in 2. And they're not even that good of episodes, so he's just mostly forgettable just because he doesn't really show up that much, so he's going in D tier. Next is Signal Man from Gekiranger, and he's really funny. He just has a lot of really funny misunderstandings with the Gekiranger and just his running bit of always getting on the Gekiranger's asses for violating traffic laws or whatever, even though they're trying to save the world, is funny. And even that, he still has a pretty interesting story about wanting to be with his family still. So he's funny. He also has a little bit of substance to him, but mostly he's just funny and has good interactions with the team and also some other characters. So he's B tier. Next is Bull Black from Gigaman, and he's definitely the best extra ranger or extra hero. He's just incredible. Just the stretch of episodes where he's in is one of the best stretch of episodes in any Sentai season, even if they all don't focus completely on him. They're all great episodes. And he just has such an interesting backstory with the Balban killing his brother and him wanting to go out for revenge and also taking over Hugo's body. He's always been a really cool character, and I wish he was around for longer, but all we got was really good, so he's going in S tier. Next is Hyuga, the Black Knight of Seiju Sentai Gingaman, and while I like him, he's not nearly as cool as Bull Black. He's a lot more like Ryoma. They're pretty much the exact same character as like generic fearless leader type characters. He has a couple of cool moments with Ryoma, but you just feel a little too similar. He's still pretty good, but he's just not that special, so he's going in B tier. Next is Doggy Kruger, Deca Master of Tokusatsu Sentai Gekiranger, and he's another great extra ranger, just that he's the commander of the team, but when he needs to, he goes out into the field, and he has such a cool suit, and his sword is really cool, and he just has a cool backstory, and just whenever he goes out into the field, it feels like such a cool moment, and it's even cooler because he doesn't have to go out all the time. He really only goes out during special moments, so he's just a great character and also a great extra ranger, so he's going in S tier. Next is Swan, Deca Swan of Tokusatsu Sentai Gekiranger. As far as command center characters go, Swan is probably the best. She isn't too memorable, but I always liked her. She only turns into Deca Swan once, but it was a cool episode, and I've always liked her, so she's going in B tier. Next is Boukenger, Magimother of Mahou Sentai Magiranger. She's pretty much the motivation for the team, so that's always cool. She doesn't turn to Magimother too many times, but when she does, it's a cool moment. It looks pretty different than the other suits, so it's always cool to see her. And as a character, she's always been a nice character, as just the motivation for the team, so she's B tier. Next is Isamu Ozu, Wolzard Fire of Mahou Sentai Magiranger, and he's such a cool character. I know him being Wolzard technically doesn't count, but I'm counting it for this. And Wolzard is definitely the best villain in the season, even if he's only a consequential villain for like the first 15 episodes or so. And it just sucks that he really only got one fight as Wolzard Fire, and it was barely a fight. It was pretty much just one finishing attack and that's it. So that just sucks because it's such a cool suit, and when he was Wolzard, he was really cool. So he's still a great extra hero. I just wish he had more, but he's still S tier. Next is Zuban from Boukenger, and he's a bad character. He's not even a character. He's pretty much just around to give Bouken Red a sword, and that's it. He has a connection to Bouken Yellow's backstory, but it's not that interesting, and he's just kind of annoying, so he's going in D tier. Next is Rio from Gekiranger, and he's a cool villain. There's just this weird plot hole where between the time he killed John's dad and the time the season starts, he doesn't age at all, so that's kind of weird, but that's just a nitpick. And that really doesn't have anything to do with his character. He's just a cool villain. Although I really wish he wasn't redeemed. It's always kind of lame, like Abaranger. I like his redemption more than Abaranger, but I still wish he just wasn't redeemed. And he's still really cool, especially his suit, which is probably the best suit in Sentai history. So he's A tier. Next is Melee from Gekiranger, and I'm sure this is going to be controversial because a lot of people probably like her, but I just think she's so annoying and I don't really like her. Even in a season like Gekiranger doesn't have great characters. I think she's probably the worst. Maybe not as bad as John, but still pretty bad. And it's just because her entire character is just about fawning over Rio and following him around. And I thought that by the end she would have an arc where she learns to be something more than just Rio's slave, basically, but she never does, and she's just so annoying. So she's going in D tier for me. Next is Kaoru, Princess Shinkenred of Samurai Sensei Shinkenger. She's not a remarkable character, but she definitely works for what the story was trying to go, with her being a lot meaner and more strict than Takaru, at least at that point in the story. So it makes sense why they would want to not really follow her and want to go back to Takaru. But she's still a lot better than what happened in Power Ranger Samurai, where Lauren is just a lot nicer and a better person than Jaden. So it doesn't really make any sense why the Rangers would want to go back to Jaden. So in that case, Kaoru is pretty good, but she's not exactly remarkable. She's not around for too long, but it is funny that she adopts Takaru, and she works for the story. So she's going in C tier. Next is Ramirez, Kyoryu Cyan of Juden Sentai Kyoryuger, and it's always cool to see a non-Japanese actor in Sentai, but he's just not around enough and doesn't do enough. He's cool when he's around, and he has some funny moments, but he just isn't around enough and doesn't do too much, so he's going in C tier. Next is Tessai, Kyoryu Gray of Juden Sentai Kyoryuger. And like Ramirez, he just doesn't have enough to do or isn't around enough, but he doesn't really have the novelty of being a non-Japanese actor, so he's just kind of boring, and he's D tier to me. Next is Yayoi, Kyoryu Violet of Juden Sentai Kyoryuger. Compared to Ramirez and Tessai, she's around a lot more, and she's honestly around quite a bit. Her character isn't too interesting. She kind of just has a thing for Daigo, and that's pretty much her entire character. She is interesting, kinda, and she's around a lot more than the other two, so she's B tier. Next is Torin, Kyoryu Silver of Juden Sentai Kyoryuger, and like Deca Master, it's just always cool to see the mentor become a ranger. And with Torin, he has an interesting backstory, but it definitely feels a little too similar to Master Kaku from Die Ranger, where he was just a part of the villains and then became a good guy. So it feels a little derivative of that, but other than that, he's really cool. He's one of my favorite mentor characters, so he's going in S tier. Next is Bud, Juo Bird of Dobut Sentai Go-Onger. He has a lot of potential as he's a pretty key part in Yamato's backstory, but the pacing for his appearances are just really poor. He kind of just appears and then disappears for long stretches, and then he becomes Juo Bird out of nowhere and then kind of just disappears until the finale. So he could have been much cooler than he is. He's just way too scattershot throughout the season. He still has interesting potential, but it's not executed that well, so he's C tier. Next is Shorampo, Ryu Commander of Uchu Sentai Kyuranger, and like Deca Master and Torin, It's always cool to see the mentor character become a ranger. But with Ryukanger, it's a little bit different because those previous two were a lot more serious, but Shorampo is a lot goofier and has his own style, while still being cool when he can become Ryukanger. That's always cool. He has a lot of funny moments. He has some pretty cool moments too. So he's just a pretty good character overall. So he's going in A tier. Next is Kotaro, Kogama Sky Blue of the Kyurangers. And he's a child character, but he's actually not annoying at all. He has kind of an interesting story with wanting to protect Earth. But he just feels like a filler character just to make the Kyurangers bigger. And pretty much as soon as he becomes Kogama Sky Blue, he goes off and disappears for a pretty long stretch. And honestly doesn't do much throughout the entire season. He's still not terrible. He's still likable. But he's just not around enough, so he's C tier. Next is Nada, Gaisorg of Kishu Sentai Ryusoldier. Gaisorg, as a whole, just has a lot of missed potential. I feel like his part in the story never really worked for me. It just never really fit, and until Nada revealed himself, he was never really that interesting. But Nada's character is cool, as he was an apprentice of Master Red. And I just wish he could be Gaisorg on the team for longer than just a single episode. As I said before, Gaisorg in the season before, he wasn't exactly the best. He kind of just felt like a worse version of Woolzard. It never really fit. But when Nada became Gaisorg, it just all clicked together. And I like Max Ryusol Red, but I would have much rather just to have Gaisorg. Because I also like Nada and his relationship with the rest of the team. So I just wish he was around more, but what we got was pretty good, so he's A tier. Next is Stacy Caesar from Gokaiger, and he's the most cliche rogue ranger ever. His redemption was seen from a mile away, and he would be D tier if not for his really wholesome relationship with Yatsude. That's just so great, one of the best parts of Gokaiger, and that pretty much just boosts his character up. He's still a really boring character, as he's like evil, quote unquote, but then wants to be good and just flip-flops between them, and it's just really annoying how long it takes him to finally become good, because he was obviously going to be redeemed from the beginning. It was super obvious. His relationship with Yatsude was great, so he's C tier. Next is Isao Hakaiser from Gokaiger. I liked Hakaiser as he's just a funny villain and just wanted to be friends with Stacy Caesar, and that was funny. But he never really felt intimidating until the episode where he got freed. And then after he's freed, he just leaves after one episode. So that's kind of lame, because it was a cool concept, but it just wasn't done the best. I still like him, he's funny, he has some good moments with Kaito, and also some good moments with Stacy. So he's B tier. Next is Sonoi from Dom Brothers, and he's definitely the best Noto. He's just charismatic and also has funny moments, and also has a pretty good relationship with Taro. That's just cool. He's cool. That's pretty much it. He's S tier. Next is Sononi, and she's the second most interesting Noto, just because of relationship with Inu brother, and then all the episodes that came with that, they were really cool, especially the episode where Inu brother gives up all his points to revive Sononi. She's a pretty good character, but other than wanting to know what love is, that's pretty much her entire character. She's still pretty good, so she's A tier. Next is Sonoza, and he's definitely the least interesting of the Noto trio. He's mostly just a funny character who is Haruka's manga editor, which is funny and has some funny moments, but he doesn't really have any character moments like the other two, so he's just the least interesting. He's still pretty good, and he has a lot of good interactions with Haruka, so he's B tier. Next is Kaito, Zenkaiser Black from Dom Brothers. This version of Kaito is way better than the one that's in Gokaiger, even though I don't hate the version from Gokaiger, but he's just a generic annoying twerp, so this version is way cooler just because He's cool and mysterious, and he's pretty much the mentor figure for the team. Although I will say what he exactly is never explained, and that's kind of annoying, but it's pretty much just used as a joke, and that's alright. It works for Dawn Brothers, but is still kind of annoying. But he only transforms into Zenkaiser Black like 3 times, but it's honestly fine. He has a cool presence. He's in most episodes, so he's funny. He has some cool moments, and he's just great. So he's S tier. Next is Don Murasame. He just feels like a completely unnecessary addition to Dawn Brothers. Pretty much no focus is put on him. He's pretty much never explained. It's never really explained who the mother is or anything about him. He has like one moment with Don Goku, and other than that, he's pretty much sidelined and basically just relegated to like a cannon fodder character. And if he was just cut, it would give more time for Don Goku. Even if I don't like Don Goku right now, maybe more time would have helped him, and cutting Don Murasame would have helped. Even though his suit is really cool, it's just not worth it for having a character that basically isn't a character, so he's D tier. Next is Heracles, Okugata-Oger of Osama Sentai King-Ohger, and he's without question the best Rogue Ranger, just because he was completely committed to being evil just to help Kira. Even if it is kind of lame that he was just good all along, the fact that he still does evil things and then isn't just let off the hook for it at the end of King-Ohger, he's still in jail. So it's honestly fine that he was just good all along. And he still does some evil things, but he also does some really cool things near the end. So he's just an incredible extra ranger, so he's S tier. Next is Prince King-Ohger from King-Ohger, and he's probably the worst extra ranger. He's just a ripoff of Daigo, and he's just so annoying and feels completely unnecessary, honestly. Even in the Kyoryuger crossover, he just takes time away from the Kyoryugers, and then he just shows up in other King-Ohger episodes and doesn't amount to anything and just is annoying. He's pretty much just the worst aspects of Daigo turned up to 11 and doesn't have any of the coolness that Daigo can bring. So he's just awful. He's D tier. Now I'm going to talk about the 3 Q Rangers that don't really fit anywhere else. And first I'm going to talk about Stinger. He's definitely the Q Ranger with the most story devoted to him. And his story is interesting in that he was a spy. And he's mostly like a loner type character, but eventually grows closer and has a pretty cool relationship with Champ. So I honestly like him. He would probably be A tier. Next is Balance. And while he doesn't have much story devoted to him, he is just very funny and charismatic, and he has a really good relationship with Nagare that makes me like Nagare more. But I like Balance a lot more than Nagare, and he has some pretty funny episodes, and he's just cool overall, even if he doesn't have pretty much any story devoted to him. So I'll put him in A tier. Finally, Nagare. He's just kind of annoying. He at least has some plot devoted to him, but he's just mostly a bit character who wants to learn emotions and pretty much has just one joke, and it's not really that funny. Although his relationship with Balance makes him a better character than he would be otherwise. Another problem with him is just that he's evil for way too long. It feels really drawn out, and then he's just brought back to good in a really unsatisfying way. He's still an alright character. His relationship with Balance definitely brings up his stock a ton, but he's just a little too annoying for me. But he's alright, so he would go in C tier. So here's my tier list for the Super Sentai Extra Heroes and Extra Rangers. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Like I said in some of my other videos, after this video comes out, I'll be going on a break just because I have school coming up, so I really have to focus on that for the foreseeable future. I don't want to take too much of a break, but I honestly have no idea how long I'm going to take off. I will be working on my next tier ranking video in the background, which will be the Yellow Rangers, and after that will be the Pink Rangers, but I don't have a definite timetable when that's going to come out. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Feedback is always appreciated. Have a great day.